Hi, I'm Michael Gessel. As part of the International Wizard of Oz Club's celebration of the 50th anniversary of Oziana, the club's annual creative magazine featuring the best in new Oz short fiction and poetry, I'm here to read a selection from the 1973 issue, Tempus Temporis in Terra by George Van Buren. The following Oz story was originally written in Latin and has been transcribed from a tape-recorded translation by Mr. Van Buren, who frequently writes in Latin prose. Chapter 1, An Image from the Past, or Magna Imag Muli Mugai, a big image of a wicked witch. It was a happy time in the land of Oz, as it almost always is, was, and shall be. Osma and Dorothy, the Tin Woodman, and the Scarecrow were sitting together, friends confirmed by time. Two boys were also present, bright as a button, in my language, in his language, Button Bright, and Ojo, who had just arrived from Sebania to visit. They talked over old times. I had no idea whatsoever that I was about to make history when I threw the water, Dorothy said. A red cloud began to grow unnoticed. Little by little, it began to take shape. What's that? Said the Sebanian prince, pointing out the cloud. I don't know, Ozma replied, but it drew the eyes of all. The girl summoned the wizard. It was now the form of an old woman, and Dorothy screamed. Why are you screaming, my friend? The queen asked. You have never seen her yourself, Ozma, Dorothy answered. During that time you were an infant, and then but a boy. I recognize that face as I saw it yesterday, although it is impossible. It is, nevertheless, the Wicked Witch of the West. I swear by the waters of the dark well. The wizard interrupted. It is, he said, as you say, Dorothy. He turned to the boys, saying, Who is the boy who likes to frighten girls? Ojo looked at Button Bright, and Button Bright Ojo. The lucky one responded, Perhaps it's Woot, perhaps it's Kiki-Aru. Whoever it is, he is not present. Why are you asking? This is a simple trick, he answered. There is no wicked witch, only an image. The image laughed and dried up. And Ozma laughed. I confess, she said, that this is a funny joke and caused no true injury. It is an illegal joke, however, for magic is forbidden. The arrival of Glinda the Good was now announced, and everyone hurried to greet her. She seemed worried, but she greeted the boys and girls in a happy manner, notwithstanding. She asked for a private meeting with the wizard and Ozma. I was sitting in my red castle when suddenly an image of the Wicked Witch of the West appeared to frighten me. I do not consider this in the category of a joke. I therefore consulted the Great Book of Records. It said that a vision had appeared, but it did not designate who had sent it, as it should have done. The image also appeared here. From where did it come if nobody sent it? The wizard asked. But I don't consider this a thing of importance. It's some boyish prank. Nor do I, Glinda responded. I consider a joke to be important. But who is there in the entire land of Oz who would, if he could, place an impediment to my book for the reason of a joke? For who is there in the land of Oz who would prepare an impediment to my book just to joke if he were able to do it? There is no one, the wizard confessed. What then is going on? I imagine the Scarecrow is able to find an answer, she responded. The Scarecrow was therefore sent for, who thought the matter over and finally responded. Perhaps the vision was seen today, but sent yesterday. Of course, she exclaimed, and returned to her castle. She looked in the book, but could not find the desired writing. She ordered it, however, to show the place in which this was written, if it was written anywhere. The pages of the great book, as if blown by the wind, began to roll back, first through days, then through months, and finally through years. Such is this book that no one could ever hope to read it completely, for it has written everything that has occurred since the day of its creation. Perhaps Glinda holds the keys which would unlock the doors to the answers of many questions that have puzzled historians for centuries. You may escape the notice of your parents and your teachers. You will not escape the notice of this book. And when I have a wicked deed in my mind, with all other considerations laid aside, I still fear this book, for it is located in a land in which I desire to have an untarnished image. The book had opened itself to a place long before Dorothy had arrived in the land of Oz for the first time. There she read these words: "Today the Wicked Witch of the West has brought it about with her magical arts that at some future time an image shall appear in high places, and also was such a bad boy that he beat up his sister." Before she closed the book, she noticed a place where several pages had been severed. Wondering about this, she closed the book and returned to the Emerald City. And there she unwillingly burdened the girl with the story and said, "Perhaps the witch herself removed the pages, lest we should know what on earth she was doing. So I do not know what it is that we are to expect." She returned after a while to her own castle to think. Ozma was now alone in her throne room, tending to matters of great importance which pertained to her kingdom. Her list was full of these important items, and like all lists of important items, the items on it were not really important, but the people who submitted them considered them to be so. The girl was therefore forced to go over these, lest they might be hurt, who had submitted them to her attention. Suddenly, some smoke that was on the floor took the form of an old woman upon itself, and so the image appeared again. "Go away," the girl said. "I do not wish to be bothered while being bothered." But it did not go away. Ignorant of what the girl had said, the Wicked Witch of the West began to speak. "Do not fear that I might make a return. I have been destroyed, but I have provided that I would not suffer any form of destruction without revenge. So beautiful is the land of Oz, how ugly the outside world is, placed before the land of Oz. Enjoy your magical kingdom while it is a magical kingdom. You will have 7 days. Enjoy it while it exists. Foreseeing my downfall, I have set in motion an instrument of destruction, which I have concealed in a secret place. But behold, how kind I am, for I have given my enemy years. Now I must say goodbye, lest you should be frightened by this ugly sight. Goodbye, oh stupid king, whoever you might be." She laughed and disappeared. Moved by this oration, Ozma summoned the Sawhorse to her. Leaving the red wagon unharnessed, she hurried as quickly as possible towards the Red Land. There, although it was late at night, she awoke Glinda from her sleep. Having explained her reasons, the girl at once with the woman hastens towards the Great Book. "The location of this device," Glinda said, "certainly lies upon the page which was lifted from the book. I will try, therefore, to reveal this knowledge by the use of my magic." She opened the book to this famous day, placed thereupon a new page, and commanded that the pen should write the same thing which it had written before. And this it wrote: "First of all, it must be reported that Mary was not as good a girl today as she was yesterday, because she neglected her homework, and also the Wicked Witch of the East threw a party to which she invited all the bad people in the land of Oz, and the number was not large. A boy in Oklahoma brought his sister's cat down from a tree. A certain pig escaped the notice of the farmer and chased the hen around the barn 3 times before he could be captured. A prince in a certain country threw a fit after his birthday party was over. The Wicked Witch of the West has set out towards the Purple Kingdom. She dug a hole in which she placed an instrument of destruction. Such is this instrument that it cannot be located by magic. By chance, however, one Gillikin boy was passing by. I imagine that it is important to note that a dog bit an infant and no one." And so the pen persisted in its writing. And if I continued to write all which the book wrote on this single page, my story would become longer than all the books which have been written in the history of mankind, with the exception of the great record book itself. And so Glinda announced, "The entire matter has been finished simply. Let us go to the Emerald City. Let us ask from the magic picture that it should show us this boy." And so they mounted the swan-drawn chariot, and they lost no time in proceeding to the Emerald City. There they sat before the magic picture, and Ozma asked the picture to show them this boy, saying, "Whoever you might be, artist of the magic picture, paint a picture of this boy." "Quicumque ses puerum pictum pictor pingu," which this was said, the magic picture reflected the vision before it as it was a mirror. I fear this, the girl said. It is not able to show us the boy, for the machine is not able to be found through magical instruments. She summoned the Tin Woodman to her, and the Scarecrow and Dorothy, and finally the wizard himself, to whom she explained the situation. Thereupon Dorothy asked how many boys there are in the Gillikin country, and the Queen answered, I do not know, for we have never taken a census. There are even kingdoms there unknown to us. Chapter 2. Quesito Puelis, a search for a boy, or Quesito Kuwandi Quesumtum, the search seeking the one that was sought. It came to pass in those days that there went up a decree from Osma of Oz that the boy who had once seen the Wicked Witch of the West burying something in the Gillikin country should come to the Emerald City. But such a great number of boys arrived that a fact for a long time lost in history was soon discovered, that the Wicked Witch of the West had buried something in the Gillikin country almost every day, and I am unable to designate the number of ridiculous items which were dug up. Almost as many purple clothing was seen on the boys in the Emerald City as green, for many boys had come from the Gillikin country. They came also from the country of the Winkies. A few also wore blue and red. The girls came too, some accompanying their brothers, and some who had seen the Wicked Witch themselves. But no boy was neglected, and no boy was proved to be a liar, for a boy would point out a place, and there something was dug up. Considering the fact that the Wicked Witch might have affected the book in such a manner that it would falsely record the location, they did not ignore a boy from another country, nor did they ignore the girls. Although the convention of Gillikin boys ended in friendships and goodwill, at the same time it produced a great pile of rubbish, which the boys said they would take home with them. When they stopped coming, the girlish ruler called a meeting in which the Scarecrow, to whom the wonderful wizard had given excellent brains, was asked what should be done next and what he proposed to do. He thought the matter over and responded, We have now wasted 3 days with these boys, and the one whom we were seeking did not come, although many came. We must ask, therefore, why he did not come. I remember a certain pink bear who would respond. Before the straw man could say more, Dorothy picked up the magic belt and wished them all in Bear Center. When the confusion had died down, they obtained permission from the great bear to ask a few questions from the small bear. Here we should note that in the original Latin, we are talking about Ursus Major and Ursus Minor. This we should compare to Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. Perhaps the classical people didn't realize who the great bear and the little bear actually were, but we know, don't we? The great bear turned the crank and permitted Ozma to ask, and she asked, Why didn't the boy whom we were seeking come to the Emerald City? The pink bear answered, The boy did not come to the Emerald City because of the fact that the boy no longer exists. The pink bear's answer annoyed the wizard, for he knew that no one could die in the land of Oz, so he asked, Has this boy left our land and entered the outside world? There boys are often terminated, usually by age. The bear denied this. The boy did not leave, he said. The man fell silent, and after a moment's thought, he exclaimed, Eureka! Here I am, the cat answered. I don't want you, the wizard said in response. Then why did you call me? The cat asked. Nobody except me is Eureka. Thus, having spoken, she went to sleep, as is the habit among cats. There is only one boy who no longer exists, he continued. He was called Tip, and the magic picture showed you, Ozma. Yes, I must agree with you, Ozma answered, but probably I did not realize that she was the witch, and I probably didn't believe that she was burying anything of importance. Did you wander about much when you were a boy? The Scarecrow asked the girl. I never left the area which was close to the house, the girl responded, before I fled. The road now lies open, the Scarecrow exclaimed, for the instrument of destruction that hangs over our land as a menace is even now in the area surrounding Mombi's house. No delay was made before the entire party set out to Mombi's place. Neither the great necessity nor the lack of time was able to stop Ozma from recalling old memories, but there they set up the inquiry. There they went over the entire area to no avail, for there was no evidence that was willing to show itself. The wizard sat beneath the trunk of a tree and thought the matter over. What are you thinking about? Ojo asked. About the boy, the wizard said. About Button Bright? The boy asked. No, I am thinking about Tip, the wizard said. Call everyone to me who is present here. The boy obeyed these words and called everyone together. The little man rose from the trunk and thus spoke. Certainly, I imagine that machine lies hidden here, but we do not have time to find its location. I have heard from various sources that the wall of time is able to be transcended, and I realize that the place that we are seeking must be shown to us by the boy himself. A journey made into the past is a very dangerous thing, for our history is able to be changed by one breath. I shall try, therefore, to summon the boy from his own time and to place him back into that exact moment of time from whence I summoned him. Chapter 3. Ozma Sees Himself, or Tota Terra Tuta Tipi Facta. The entire land made safe by Tip, or, and this one is originally in English, it's a long way for Tipitarius. First of all, the wizard explained, it is necessary that you, the Scarecrow, and the Tin Woodman should leave our company, for the boy knows all about you, and that you girls take up false names upon yourselves, for he knew about Dorothy when he fled to the Emerald City, and if he should hear the name Ozma, he may announce this to Glinda the Good at that time when she is seeking her. Since these are so, I propose that you at once think up false names, and I must do the same thing. And this is most important of all, that the boy should be told nothing concerning the present times. It must appear to him as if we have just arrived, in the manner of strangers. Fortunately, this area has not changed much over the years. After she thought for a while, Dorothy announced that she was going to call herself Gale, because her name was Gale, and it would not be a lie to call herself by that name. The wizard approved this plan and asked Ozma what she was going to do. I shall call myself Ima, the girl answered, for that means bottom in Latin, which is the opposite from tip, which means tip in English. The Wizard of Oz placed the wishing pill in his mouth, and he wished the boy from a time shortly after that in which he had seen what they wished to know. The boy suddenly turned to go. Oh, he said, I didn't know you were here. Who are you? Ozma approached him and extended her hand, saying, My name is Ima. But when the boy stretched out his own hand, unforeseen lightning immediately flashed forward at the same time from the boy's hand and from the girl's hand. They both were amazed, and they looked at each other. But Dorothy intervened, saying, Do not be afraid of my friend, upon whom the Wicked Witch of the East has placed an enchantment. If this is the case, said Tip, you should also avoid me, for I myself live with the witch. She does not like strangers to come about. How about your friends? Button-Bright asked. I am not able to have friends, Tip declared, for old Mombi will not permit it. She is the witch whom I just mentioned. Perhaps you are able to help us, my boy, the wizard suddenly said. Have you ever seen an old woman burying a thing of some sort? No, I haven't, the boy replied, with a perplexed look. The wizard was startled at this answer. He remembered the words of the great book. The Wicked Witch of the West has set out towards the Purple Kingdom. She dug a hole in which she placed an instrument of destruction. Such is this instrument that it cannot be located by magic. By chance, however, one Gillikin boy was passing by. Certainly, the wizard whispered to Ozma, she made herself invisible. Of course, that is why I thought that I had forgotten about it in the first place, Ozma replied. But the boy has a more recent memory of the affair. Therefore, ask him if he has seen anything. So the wizard asked the boy, Do you know anything about digging in this area? The boy sat at the trunk of a tree and thought for a long while. Finally, he spoke. I remember, he said, that a few months ago I was walking through the forest. I heard the sound of shovels, and I hurried toward the sound. Then a cry arose as if somebody had struck his foot with a spade, and a word followed the cry. He fell silent in the middle of his speech, and he blushed. Certainly, the boy resumed, I cannot repeat this word in front of girls. Moreover, I did not know prior to this incident there was anyone in the whole land of Oz who would use such a word, unless it might be the Wicked Witch of the West herself. There was a hole there. Whoever had dug it had left. I also left. To this place I even now able to lead you. He rose and set out towards the forest. They followed him. The boy suddenly stopped in amazement. He pointed out a tree with his hand. Ojo examined the tree. It was not singular in appearance, nor did it hold much difference from its sisters. The reason was not clear why this tree should seem important to the boy, except that it was bigger than the others. Why is this tree the cause of alarm? Ojo asked. Scarcely able to speak, Tip stammered. Behold the size of this tree! It is not exceedingly large, the boy answered. But it is large notwithstanding, Tip said. Ojo thought over the boy's answer and asked, why shouldn't it be large? Tip looked at the boy and answered, I planted it yesterday. When he heard this, the other boy became amazed, but he soon recovered himself, not without these words, certainly you are in error, Tip. Such a tree cannot grow here in one day. I am not in error, Tip cried. I know what I've done and what I haven't done, and I know that I planted this tree yesterday. Perhaps it was a magic tree, as once an English boy named Jack planted a magic beanstalk, and it grew in one night. He resumed his journey. They arrived at a place through which a stream held its course. The water in the land of Oz is always pure. It is not full of oil and soap. It is not contaminated with chemicals. The boys and girls are accustomed to drink from the rivers when thirst takes their bodies. The boy dropped himself, therefore, to his knees to drink. He glanced at the water of the stream and was amazed when he saw the reflection, for it was not the reflection of a boy. He moved his hand, and the reflected girl moved hers. It's Ima, he murmured to himself. Perhaps this is a part of that enchantment about which I have been told. Come here, Ima, he said. Behold the water. The girl also knelt and peered into the water. Now the image of a boy appeared. The boy laughed. In the water, he said, I am you, and you are I. But then he noticed that she herself was amazed only for a moment. She immediately recovered and spoke thus. Do not consider this strange. The wicked witch of the East has released my reflection from me, and it rules itself according to its own will. Let me make this proposal to you, Tip said, that you should go to the Emerald City, that you may ask the help of the Wizard of Oz that rules the city. The wizard, who was himself present, was unable to restrain himself, and he laughed. But the boy was not able to see the cause for the laughter, and in vain he demanded it from the wizard, for he said that he had merely recalled something funny which happened the other day. The boy did not like this answer, but he continued to lead the party through the forest. By chance he came upon two boys lying on the bank of the stream. He stopped walking and listened to their conversation. The first said, It is said that Mr. Tinker once built a ladder which he stretched to the moon. I've heard this story, the second boy replied. He liked the moon so much that he stayed there and drew the ladder up after him. The first boy thought this over. Then he asked his friend, Do you think that the Americans are going to find him? Hearing this, Tip was not able to restrain himself. The Americans, he exclaimed. They are not able to go to the moon, for America is located in the great outside world where the people have no magical instruments, where magical instruments are not even able to exist. When the boys heard this, they began to laugh. Even now, they said between their laughs, they have gone to the moon 3 times. They have done this even without magic. Do you expect me to believe this incredible story? Tip asked. Many things are done in the outside world which once were only able to be done in the land of Oz. For example, the boy said, doctors give new hearts, and there are pictures which are almost similar to the magic picture. They are even able to change boys into girls in the outside world. But now the boys stood in amazement, for standing before them was Ozma of Oz herself. They fell silent and dropped to their knees. The girl pressed her finger to her lips. The boys did not understand this, but they obeyed. And Tip resumed his journey, thinking over what was said. It did not escape his boyish eyes that the boys became silent when a sign had been given to them. And although his anger was rising, he led the party through the forest. And suddenly he announced, "This is the exact spot where the digging took place." Chapter 4, The Instrument of Destruction, or Finis Facta Fabuli, the end of the story. When they heard this, the wizard produced shovels from their pack, and he gave them to Ojo and to Button Bright, with whom he began to dig. Tip also took up a shovel. Ojo was startled at this, and, "Are you strong enough to dig?" he asked the boy. "And why, may I ask, do you think that I am not strong enough?" the boy said. He crushed the shovel into the dirt to show that he was just as strong as the others, and after a while they raised the machine to the surface. No delay was made before the wizard and Ozma began to study the device in vain, for whatever was tried failed. Now 3 hours of time were elapsed, and no magic had had an effect on the machine of destruction. The manifest victory of the Wicked Witch seemed apparent, but the wizard and Ozma continued to work, and time continued to fly. Now only 5 minutes remained, and Tip, to whom none of this had been explained, was no longer able to contain his anger, and he cried thus: "The tree is a giant which I planted yesterday. Lightning flashes from my hands. I see a girl in the water reflected in my place. Boys who are talking about incredible things become silent when a signal is given to them. You seek this thing, you dig it up, in which you are not working, without a word out of it to me in explanation. I wish that this thing were not even located in the land of Oz." Dorothy, having heard this, exclaimed, "Of course!" She addressed Ozma, saying, "How smart a boy you were!" She raised her hand to the magic belt, saying, "I wish this machine to be in British Honduras." At that next moment time, the machine was no longer in that place. The time of destruction was over, and the land was safe. "Is there great destruction now in British Honduras?" Button Bright asked. "No, there isn't," Ozma explained, "for nothing magical is able to exist in the outside world. This instrument of destruction no longer exists, for it is a creation of magic." But Tip turned to the girl and asked, "Were you once a boy?" And everyone vanished, and he was alone. He heard the voice of Mombi calling him. He had been sent back to his own time. Ozma stood in the place where the boy had but now been standing, and she spoke as if the boy were able to hear her. "Go, boy, most fortunate of boys, and at the same time the girl most fortunate of girls, for you are expected by the voice of the royal historian himself, which we have now lacked for such a long time." She finished speaking, and everybody went home. But what about Tip? Did he hear more than he should have? Let me suggest then that you read again the Oz books to see that nothing is different from how you remember them. By George Van Buren, Nepenthe in Memoriam. This concludes Tempus Temporis and Terra by George Van Buren, originally published in the 1973 issue of Oziana. I'm Michael Gessel.